Okay, through the magic of film editing, we are now at a point where my glue from yesterday has dried. You can see it's kind of this orangish brown color. You can see where my leftover puddle of glue that I did not use, which is relatively small. If you made a puddle of glue, you know, again, this big around, and you let all that glue dry, that would all go to waste, and glue is pretty expensive, so let's try not to be wasteful with it. A lot of times students say to me, Mr. Pat, how much glue is too much glue? That's too much glue, okay? This is, let's see, I mean, look at this joint right here. How they went ahead and just slopped the glue all over it. Kind of, again, we call these glue boogers because they kind of look like boogers and they're kind of gross looking. And what sometimes I'll see is students who don't cut their joints very accurately. You can see they made really no attempt here to cut angles. They just left their ends square, and to fill in the spaces they just globbed in a bunch of glue there. Not only very messy, very weak, and not going to make a very strong tower. So how much glue should you use? About that much, and that should be sufficient. Right. So now the question becomes, we have all these diagonal pieces here. How do we do that? And very much like the horizontals that went from side to side, what I'm going to do is measure and draw with a super sharp pencil a line that's going to fit on the inside of this thing. Now, what I might do, just to get closer, rather than trying to cut off of a stick this big on my chopper, I might break it down so I'm a little bit closer like that. And then I'll get my balsa chopper and I'll turn it so that I can see that line. You can see that line right there. It's going to go right underneath my razor blade. And I'm going to cut that. And I can do the same thing on the other side. I've got my line there. You can see it. Move that underneath my razor blade and cut it. And if I did a good job measuring, look at that guy. Fits right over the line. There's my pencil line. Now you see it. Now you don't, because I have the angles here. And they fit nice and tight up against the side of my beams. Once again, I would probably put a little piece of tape there, because I don't want that guy to wiggle around while I'm taping it. While I'm gluing it, rather. The tape holds it in place while I glue it. And once again, will that piece fit? That's a little bit longer than I need. So if I make a line like this, my other way that I can do this is if I have some sandpaper, I can drag until I have that angle. Hopefully you can see that. So there's my angle there. And I have to have an angle on this end. Oops. And I'm just kind of winging this here, but if I mark it, get my hand out of the way. If I mark it like this, and then use my sandpaper, some people prefer to do it this way. The one piece of advice I would give you is, leave a little bit of extra. That may have gone a little too far. I wonder if that'll fit there instead. Remember, sometimes when your piece gets too small, for one part of your tower, you can use it somewhere else. Let's see. Pretty nice. Maybe another drag on my paper. Right up to that pencil line there. That guy's going to fit there pretty well. Another teeny tiny piece of tape. And, cutting diagonals is certainly more challenging than cutting the horizontals that go from side to side straight across. But once you do the first few, I think you'll start to get the hang of it. And like most things, you'll become better, you'll become faster. Make myself a mark. Make myself a mark. Snap it off so that I've got some extra on the ends here. And then do whatever I want. I can use my balsa chopper over here. Cut that first one. There's that angle. And I might use my sandpaper to do this one. And if I do all that, ooh-wee, not bad for an old guy. Let me try a little minor adjustment. I always say you can't put it back on, so if anything, stop a little early, right? Because if you go too far, then that piece might not be any good to you. Wow, look at that. Looks like stripes, huh? So, then, just like I did yesterday, I'll make my little puddle of glue. I'll scoop it up with a dab of with a little piece of balsa. I'll dab it on these joints here and let that sit overnight. Okay. In the meantime, I might cut and try to do all of these. I really don't recommend you try to do all 9, or if you've got up to 13 pieces all at once, because when you're pushing a loose piece against another loose piece, it's usually a disaster. So be patient. It might take you 2 or 3 periods to get one side done, but taking your time, doing a nice accurate job of getting these joints nice and tight here. I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit. Look at how tight those joints are. Right up against the beam here. All right? And then I will use the glue on the rest of it. So I'm going to pause for a second here, cut the rest of those, and then I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. Okay? So through the magic of video editing, I've cut and placed those pieces as well. And you can see that there is fresh glue on every one of those joints. You can even see I made a new little puddle of glue there and used most of it. There was just a tiny bit left when I was done. I didn't leave a whole lot to dry out. And I'm going to let this dry overnight. And when I'm done, I'll show you a trick for removing this truss, because what's going to happen is I'm going to build the exact same thing a second time. So I have 2 identical trusses, and getting the first one off without breaking it is a pretty important skill. If I happen to trash the wax paper, I'll just go get another piece of wax paper. But if I can save it and reuse it, what the heck, I might as well. Okay? So this is a pretty good place for us to stop this video, and then you'll see the next one for taking the truss off.